Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. I'm your host, Tyler Postal from Voker, and today I'm excited to be joined by Jeet, co-founder of Modulus, an AI-powered developer platform that lets engineers run multiple coding agents across repos, generate insights on code bases, and accelerate software workflows. Jeet, it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about Modulus. Why don't we start out with your background? What were you doing before Modulus, and how did you and the team have the idea?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I met when we were studying at Boston University. We were roommates, and we were like, we started a company before we bootstrapped a company before together. And after graduation, we thought that instead of finding a job, we just tried to start a company. So we both moved in San Francisco. We didn't have any job offer. We just had an idea. And that idea was that we wanted to build an AI native issue tracker. So we spent like almost a year on working on that. We scaled it to the pretty good MRR. We got some pre-seed fundings and everything. We're doing really well. But we really enjoy working with Cloud Code and Cursor at the time. But the few problems was there, my co-founder and I work on two different repositories, but they're kind of like a dependent. So my co-founder works on mostly an AI agentic repository, and I work with like an application side of it. But they're kind of like each other. They need to talk to each other to serve the users. So what was happening is that like all the decision or the changes he made, I had to kind of like repeat themselves on my Cursor windows, so that it understands what's the backend schema is and everything like that. And we found it pretty annoying, although we really like working with the Cursor and the Cloud Code. So we internally built a tool that actually captures all these changes every time you merge something, and just kind of like a memory type of thing that remembers what's the dependency between these repositories and how it works. So after we kind of like had to we wanted to walk away from that AI native issue tracker. It was not for us. We didn't find so much passion for it, so working on it. So we're just thinking that what we should be exploring. And at the time we were working on some few other ideas, but we always used that tool. It was powered by an MCP server, so it was like a really cool. We found it like even though we are working like a kind of like two different repositories, but it's like we don't have to communicate with each other. Our IDs knows that what he's working on, what's the latest changes he has made, and based on that, if I have to make any changes. So we found it really powerful. So we wanted to take that and publish that MCP like as a product, which we did for like a week or two. Then we couldn't build a lot of things on top of that. So it's just like a kind of like a mess. So we thought that, well, we can help that if the user is multiple times, they're running multiple coding agents or something like that, we can help with that. So that's what Modulus is. It helps you to run multiple coding agent with the shared project memory. So it has a memory, so you don't have to talk, you don't have to repeat yourself, even if you change the agent or change the agent session or something like that.
Amazing. I love that story. It sounds like, you both made the leap of like, hey, I don't want to look for a job. I'm just going to start a company.
Yeah.
That's very founder mindset. And then when it comes to like founder market fit or founder problem fit, I'd say that's really important. If it's not something you're passionate about, even if the idea is going well and your customers like it, it's important that you want to do, what you're spending, 90% of your day doing, which is building this company. And so it sounds like similar to some companies like Slack and others, what started out as an internal tool, you realized could be useful to other people. And so the idea for Modulus was born. That's exciting story.
Yeah, that's really true though. So when we were building that AI native issue tracker, we didn't want to sell it to the like a product manager or something like that, because we don't really necessarily speak the same language with that IC with those like professions. So we wanted to sell that to the developers. So it's like a AI native issue tracker built for the developers, but it seems like that. I mean, AI has already changed how people actually work. I don't think people are actually looking to like track the issue management or something like that. So it was really interesting to say that we're trying to sell an issue project management software to developers. So developers really necessarily don't care so much about like a task management and creating a task and tickets and everything else. So it was not really good fit in that sense that we wanted to work with for the developers, but the product was not designed for them. It was
Makes sense. And I mean, this new product definitely is designed for developers.
Yeah.
Developers are loving Claude Code, like you mentioned, and other sort of like AI coding tools. And so having something that works across repos and, just is more collaborative, that sounds really valuable. I noticed that Modulus is a Mac OS app. I'm curious what made you decide to like build a native app, and how is that going?
Yeah, so we use a Tauri, the framework, to build on the desktop app, and the Tauri uses the web view for the web view from the operating system. So it's not like Electron that uses Chrome. So Chrome can Chrome. So with the problem with the Tauri will happen is that web view for the every operating system looks differently, because in macOS it uses the Safari to run the entire to render the on the UI. On like a Windows or something else, it will use the Edge. That's like a native browser. So because of that, the UI actually changes a little bit for each operating system if you publish the same code base. So you have to tweak slightly for each operating system, slightly little bit, so that UI become consistent for each one. So that's why we just started with the Mac. We are working on the Linux part. We'll come back to Windows later on. But that's the reason we wanted to release one platform at a time.
Amazing. Why don't we get into a bit about what Modulus is and what it does? Yeah. How do you break up in your head the different AI features? Are there parts that are workflows in the background that users don't interact with? Are there parts that are like agentic chat? How does it compare to like Claude Code? Is it working hand in hand, or is it a competitor to? Maybe share a bit more about how the product works.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't. You can think of it that we actually orchestrate the Claude Code. We don't actually necessarily not competing with the Claude Code. In fact, we actually have a support for Claude Code and the Codex on the platform. As of now, we are planning to bring more coding agents. Our goal is to not to build the coding agent, but do everything else before that and after that. So Claude Code is, I think, really good at writing code. But what happens is that if you wanted to work on multiple repositories, it just don't know. So it has the like a local memories. So that's specifically like a chat on the chat window. It has a memory, or it understands all the things. But if you move to the another chat window or something like that, it kind of like forgets that what you have made. And certainly it doesn't work for the two different repositories. So you can think of it like you have for a backend API repositories, and you have like a front-end repository. Now, if you made some changes, like a database schema changes or like API response changes, and you now started to work on the front end, you just kind of have to repeat that cell, because Claude Code doesn't know that. But it was so surprising because there is the same Claude Code. So why it doesn't know that? So because it globally it doesn't remember anything. So that's the idea. So modules actually help you with that. So if you have the cross repository dependency and you're working on the multiple repositories that are dependent on each other, you don't have to repeat itself. You don't understand that one thing. And second important thing is that is there like a context. So we all know that a coding agent can produce the best result if you give the best context. So it's all dependent on the context, how much context you're giving it. So what we internally built is that some of the context we kind of like taking care of, like giving the up-to-date documentation link or documentation form. All these things that help your coding agent, like a Claude Code or Codex, to write code better that you almost accept.
Awesome. So it sounds like Modulus is an orchestration and a developer experience improvement for whatever coding tool you want today, whether that's Claude Code or Codex, and more coming in the future. Amazing. Yeah. So tell me a bit more about like the actual product, in the back end. Are there features that are like AI, or is most of the AI feature just like, hey, that's the Claude Code part, and you're doing a lot of traditional software, which is, the important stuff to make sure orchestration works? Are there any components of your product that are AI beyond like, Claude Code itself?
Yeah, so our whole the context engine is on the AI. So we build the context engine from the scratch. That was the internal tool we built a long time ago, and right now we are working on a lot to make it much more better and perfect.
When you say context engine, is that like similar to RAG or a context graph, or is it more like an agentic system where there's multiple agents talking to each other?
So we have the context engine, and then we have in front of them, we our agent sits on that, and that agent distributes the context based on whoever asking, who's user, and what is needed. So the context engine you can think of like in a database type of thing, and then and you can think of the AI agent is like more like an API. Whoever asking for what context, it from that warehouse it takes it and provides to that so that it must become.
Great. And who is the person or what's the service that's interacting with that agent that's orchestrating things? Is that the actual end user, or is it Claude Code that's asking a question, and then Claude Code's essentially asking that to your agent that then goes to your context engine?
Yeah, so we try to do that. Like try to make it in such a way that Claude Code and Codex actually ask us. But it happens is that because they are different coding agent and we cannot control them so much. So completely relying on that. Sometimes they call our AI agents to get the information. Sometimes they don't. So what we realize that if we build our platform takes care of before it goes to the Claude Code, then we can do that. So so you can think of it. Like if you just write a prompt that, hey, build this button, and then all the our platform first takes that prompt and take all the necessary context and like kind of like an re-enhance that prompt itself. Then it passes it to the Claude Code. Then Claude Code writes the code, and then it returns to the user. So user is looking at it like, oh, I just wrote one line, but it give me it understand what exactly all the thing is needed, and that's what we're planning to do.
Very cool. So it sounds like maybe people who first start out with Claude Code and they're building in a single repo, doing a simple project, like that's going to work well for them. But as soon as they have like a lot of collaborators and multiple repos, putting Modulus as the first line of defense, it's like the first layer that they talk to. So they're talking to Modulus, and then behind the scenes, Modulus can then decide what context should I give to Claude Code or Codex, or maybe even both. Is it possible to run both or multiple coding agents if your users want to?
Yeah, that's the another use case is that if you're using the Claude Code and you just imagine that you had a long conversation, right? And in a Claude Code, that session remembers all the conversation you had. You switch to the something like a cursor or like a codex or something like that, and all this conversation is gone. They don't know anything what you talked about, right? So now what we do is just the Modulus remembers all this conversation you had with the Claude Code. So if you now switch to the codex or any other coding agent that you are working with, and they just gives the exactly the same conversation information as a context. So you don't have to repeat yourself. You can think of it just it remembers, no matter what coding agent you are using at any time.
That's great. I'm sure that has a lot of value for engineers who want to like try, a certain problem that maybe Claude Code's not doing great at, and you want to hand it off to a different coding agent and see how it performs.
Yeah.
What's the main metric that you or your users track to see like why it's better to use Modulus versus just vanilla Claude Code? Is it like time spent to, like correcting? Is it, accuracy of the code? What do you find is most important to your users?
Yeah, so our internal KPI that we are actually tracking for to measure the success of our product, which is that just like you said, like how many times it have to correct the coding agent. So, hey, don't do that. Like do this. This is not what I meant. This is what I mean. That's what we're trying to do. So our ideal goal will be that you write one prompt and it generates the code, and that you should be you should accept and merge it. Like, can I go to that? That's the future. That's the way we are trying to hit out of it. Like, can I do that? If you can do that, then it's much better, right? Now, even if you're trying to build right now features or something like that in a very complex code base, not like something like a very simple CRUD operation or something like that, but if you're very complex software trying to build and you're building some small features, you kind of have to repeat 3 to 4 times unless you give enough context. So even if you give the enough context, sometimes it just does other things. So that's why you're trying to get there. Like, can I just have one prompt and one output? So it will be reducing the how do I say it, like a token counts as well for the AI to use it. So that will be really helpful. But that's the KPI we are trying to measure.
Amazing. So it sounds like the North Star is getting to this place where a single prompt gets you to a code that you're comfortable merging. So you guys will be able to track like how well is Modulus doing? It's doing well. The fewer prompts needed to get to a merge. When it comes to that idea of a correction, I love that like concept that you mentioned where the user has to like reprompt or correct the agent. This is actually something that we've built into our analytics product. And, because I think a lot of times you might not know how your users are using your agent. You have so many users, they're improving the ways they interact with agent over time. They might start asking it to, not just create a front end, but like order a pizza. And maybe that's like, maybe it's not built for that, or maybe it should be. Maybe you decide we want to add that feature. How do you guys measure like this correction concept, or how do you keep track of how your users are using Modulus that then informs feedback to like improve the product?
Yes, right now, I think right now it's a lot of like a manual work. We have we do the log dumps in the S3 buckets, and we kind of like a manual check much often. And each those log dumps are for each session or like a chat. We don't necessarily see the code that prod coder generates. What we're trying to track is that how many times the user has corrected the system, and if we give even if we enhance the user prompts with the right context and everything else, after that, how many times also user has corrected that, and that's what we're trying to get. And if user has corrected, then we're trying to understand, did our context miss something, or like what happened? Like we didn't give the context that user had to repeat. Like where it went wrong. So that's something that we are kind of look at tracking it. We don't have set up like a complex analytics system as of now. We're working on just like a release, like I think mid of January, so like 2 weeks back. So we're still working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great progress in such a small amount of time. And that's really, I think, normal for the state of the industry right now. Most folks we talk to, that is their methodology. It's like, number one, make sure you're tracking all the logs. And then once you have those stored somewhere, once a user brings up an issue, you can go dig through the logs and figure out what happened. Might take some time, but it's worth it because you want to know how to improve the product. And then you get into the context engineering, et cetera. So I think you're in good company there. That's pretty much the standard practice today. We're hoping to make that simpler over time, just like everything from evals to, agent frameworks are evolving. But it's an exciting time in the space because we're all figuring out what are the tools we need to build these agents faster, to monitor them, et cetera. Very cool. Well, maybe, as we get close to wrapping up, I'm curious, what's something interesting you've seen with how people have used Modulus, that you weren't expecting maybe, or that you were expecting and it ended up happening? What can you share with us about like the state of how people use coding agents today, since you obviously have a front seat there?
Yeah, I think what's something interesting that we have noticed, we didn't have that feature. I think we still don't have it. We're still working on it. Is that people like to work on multiple projects at the same time, and like a general coding idea doesn't allow you to do that. Like a cursor, VS Code, any coding agent won't allow you to do that. You cannot work on multiple repositories unless you open multiple windows. But even if you open multiple windows, you cannot work on multiple projects. So that's something which is very surprising, because recently what happened is that one of our users opened like 2 different projects. And our app thought they're just dependent on each other, but they couldn't. Our AI couldn't figure out any relationship between them, because there is no relationship actually. Those are just 2 different projects, and we didn't have that feature, so we don't know how to isolate those 2 things, or how to let user to decide that those are 2 different projects or something like that. So I think that's very interesting, because we will be enabling people to build many things at the same time in a much more faster pace. Like if you're just like working through some POCs in multiple projects or working on that, I think that's really I think that's where we are heading towards, and we're going to work on that.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I've heard all sorts of people talk about how they have like 3 different agent windows open at once to work on different projects, but then that's still a challenge. And so, sometimes they even have multiple computers. So it sounds like you guys are going to solve that, make it easy to, not only run multiple agents against a single project at once, but maybe also build multiple products in parallel. So
exactly.
Very fascinating. Well, thanks for sharing all the learnings, the struggles, and also the wins that you've gone through so far with building Modulus. As we wrap up, I want to put your website up on the screen. Maybe just share with folks who should check it out. How do they get in contact with you? And
Yeah, I think I'm pretty active on the Twitter, so you can always DM me. I'm available over there. But even if it's not, you can always email me, jeet@modulus.so. I intend to reply as soon as possible, although sometimes I don't get notifications, so that's there. Anyone who is working with like a Cloud Code or the Codex, just give it a try. It's much more better user experience in terms of that if you do not necessarily prefer the terminal UI. It's a much more better user experience, and we have inbuilt GitHub features and everything, so you can raise a pull request, you can do the commit message, all these things from our platform. And you will end up enjoying working with that, even if you're working on multiple repositories and multiple projects. So that's something, if you're really looking for, I think it's really cool.
Amazing. Well, thanks again, Jeet. It's great to hear about, your founding story and, the exciting things you're building over at Modulus. Yeah. Looking forward to following along as you guys continue to build out multiple different, support for different platforms, support for more coding agents, support for multi-projects. Sounds like you guys are shipping quickly, and I assume you're using Modulus internally.
We do. We do right now. That's the plan.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on, and I'm sure
thanks for having me.
Yeah. To everyone listening, thanks for tuning in to Built to Ship. If you're building something, go ship it. See y'all later.
Yep.